to the 14th edition of Moving Out of Academia. And this time we're focusing on data science and analytics. And this is the second edition of the data science Moving Out of Academia. So not only do we have a fabulous lineup of panelists, but we also have some talent acquisition representatives who'll be joining us from the companies that our alumni are working for, and you'll be able to meet them during the breakout session. Now, I'm joined by my wonderful team, Simona and Elena, and I'm also thrilled to introduce you all to Alexandra Wodzinska, who is head of IT platforms and workflows at CERN. And it's someone with whom I had the pleasure of working with a few years ago. So Alexandra is a computing engineer with extensive experience in the domains of systems engineering, project management, and leadership. She has a track record in solution delivery, fostering collaboration, and building relationships. The Platforms and Workflows group, led by Alexandra, provides tools supporting software development and project management workflows, content authoring, and general purpose application hosting, as well as identity and access management services. And she and her team have been great in helping us with the alumni.cern platform as well. So it's my great pleasure, Alexandra, to hand the floor over to you.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you for this great introduction. It's a pleasure to be here. Welcome, everybody. In today's event, we will have three parts. First, we're going to hear from our panelists about their professional journey, and that will be followed by a Q&A session. So you will get the chance to ask your questions and get interesting answers. We will have a break, and following the break, we will focus on our panelists' experience in successful transition from academia to industry with some practical tips. We will then wrap up the event, and we will finish with a networking session in dedicated breakout rooms. And this is really an amazing opportunity for you to further engage and understand a bit better, ask even more questions. So don't miss out on this chance. All right, so I would like to start with the introduction of our six amazing speakers. I will go in order of appearance today. We have with us Andrea Dotti, who is the Senior Manager of an R&D team at Pix4D, Rasmus Mackepreng, who is a Senior Analyst at Nykredit, Zuzana Moravcova, Senior Risk Model Developer at Orsted, James Robinson, Lead Research Software Engineer at the Alan Turing Institute. We also have Stefania Vitillo, Senior Data Scientist at Takeda, and Carlos Vergel Infante, Customer Success Data Analyst at Open Systems. So I suggest that we start with the first part. So we will kick off the session with Andrea Dotti. I will just give you a little bit more detail about Andrea. He received his PhD in physics from the University of Pisa, worked as a researcher at CERN and at Stanford, and currently he directs advanced R&D activities at Pix4D, the company who is a leader in the field of photogrammetry. Okay, that's the introduction of Andrea. Please, the floor is yours.
Hello, thank you, Alexandra, for the nice introduction. It's a pleasure to be here at CERN, at least virtually, and I have prepared a few slides that I hope are helpful for you and can give you a little bit of my personal story moving out of academia to analytics and data science. So as said, I got my PhD in 2007, so it seems quite a lot of time ago. And at that time, I was working for the ATLAS experiment at CERN, and in particular, focusing on test beam and commissioning activities. At the time, we were actually building the detector. In 2008, I joined CERN as a fellowship, and I moved to more software activities, and in particular, working for the Geant4 simulation team. After the conclusion of my fellowship at CERN, I moved at Stanford and SLAC, where I continued to work on simulations, again for the ATLAS experiment. And during that experience, I started to look outside, let's say, of where I did my PhD and my experience at CERN, that is high energy physics, still looking at physics simulations and Geant4 simulation, but for medical applications in particular, but also space application, and also some more industrial one. So this led me, open my curiosity to the private sector out of academia. And in 2018, I decided with my family to move back to Europe. And we moved here in Switzerland, where I'm based now. And I joined a startup. As you know, startup not always are successful. So in that case also, it did not work out, but provided very insightful knowledge for me to what was the difference between what I was used before and what was new in the private sector. In 2019, I joined the company where I work now. It's called Pix4D. It's a Swiss company based in Lausanne that is doing photogrammetry. Now, in my work, I see at a different scale and with different subjects, but a kind of parallelism to what we were doing before. We are a technology company that is doing photogrammetry, so basically building 3D and 2D maps, 3D models and 2D maps from images. So, and we take care of the entire pipeline. So if I can make a parallel, maybe a little bit hazardous, but if I can make a parallel with what I'm used and what I was working on, for example, for the Atlas experiment, there is a part in which we acquire data and we take the data, and there is a data acquisition part. There is a part of data processing and reconstruction, and then the analysis part. So, well, in my role now, I think I can remap my mental model that was driven by my studies and my early career to what I'm doing now. So we develop data acquisition system, hardware and software. We develop the software to reconstruct this data into 3D models, and then the analysis tool to extract the information from this model. So in a certain sense, again, at a very different scale, from a big, large experiment like Atlas to a phone or a drone, we have some parallelism. There is also another parallel that for me was very important when I chose this company to work on, and is the international aspect. Again, the scale is completely different with what I was used at CERN and at Stanford, but I'm happy that the company where I am now also has an international aspect. We have offices in Europe, in the US, and Japan, and we have many contacts around the world in all the continents. And this for me personally is very important because it helps me build the international aspect of my career that has been always very important. So since I've been talking about what I'm working on now, I just would like to give you a very brief overview of what I'm actually doing now. So our company is a technology company that is providing services and solutions to other companies in the space of precision agriculture, construction, surveying, and mapping, energy utilities and infrastructure, and public safety and forensics. These are our main use cases that we solve, and I'm part of this company directing R&D activities, in particular focusing on machine learning and advanced analytics. So if I can make a comparison between my past experience and what I have now, I think there are a few points that I would like to share. First of all is why I chose this company. So why photogrammetry, even if it was not in my background as a student. I think that what is really attracting me here in this company is the possibility to solve complex problems in technology. At the time was radiation matter simulations, now it's computer vision. Very different, but with the same spirit. I think that a very common concern that people moving out of academia has the feeling of not knowing the field where they are going to. I was not a photogrammetry expert at all. I didn't know what photogrammetry was, and I was not a data scientist, strictly speaking. However, I think that what CERN gave me and what my experience in academia gave me mainly is the problem-solving mindset. That is actually a top trait that when hiring for R&D, data science, and this high technology position, the recruiters search for. So I think that this ability helped me a lot in finding this job. I was also impressed at how fast the technology evolves and moves in the private sector. So what we learn today may be well changing tomorrow. And again, the flexibility and the possibility and the capability to adapt quickly was very valuable skill for me. And you need to demonstrate it when you search a job. This was very important beside the specific technology that I learned during my academia time. What probably is most challenging, even today after a few years of experience, is try to move beyond the academic perfectionism. And I perfectly understand, and it's very correct, that when we are in academia, when we are working at CERN, we strive for perfection. We try to find the best possible solution, no matter what. Well, unfortunately, in a certain sense, in the private sector, it cannot always be like that. Often you need to find the most acceptable solution that satisfies the constraints you have, being constraint, economics constraint, of time, or whatever. And actually, this is probably something that someone coming from excellence centers or excellence university struggle the most to adapt to. But however, when you complete the journey, I find what is most satisfying for me in this new activity is the possibility to align the complex technical concept that I work on and I work with the team to the business needs, bringing the very value that our customers need, and finding a way to create together a value proposition and a message that resonates with our customers is probably the most satisfying part of my job. I've concluded here. I just want to invite you to the breakout session. Was just to mention that we are hiring. We have a few technical positions. Emma is also our talent acquisition lead. And please join me in the breakout session if you are interested to join us. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Andrea. We now move to Rasmus Makkeprang, who received his PhD from the University of Copenhagen. Rasmus worked at CERN for the Atlas Trigger, then for the University of Copenhagen, and then as a high school teacher. He currently works as senior analyst at Nykredit, where he validates credit risks models. Rasmus.
Hi, my name is Rasmus, and we have all promised to stay below 5 minutes, so I'm just going to start a timer here. And I'm going to talk a little about where I am now and where I was. So I'm less of a graphic designer than so many others, but life is not always so easy to get an overview of. So first of all, as you can see, I'm very, very old. Back in the day, I was doing work in the Aleph experiment at LEP and the H1 experiment at DESY. I was programming Fortran 77 back when that was a cool thing to do. I don't know if that was cool actually, but we did it anyway. And then at some point, I managed to squeeze a PhD out of the University of Copenhagen in 2007. And some of the stuff I was doing, I've tried to put some pointers there. I was in the Atlas experiment. You can see on the wall behind me if the camera is good enough. I was also writing Gen 4 code, but not the Gen 4 collaboration. Studying supersymmetry, extra dimensions, and aspects of strong nuclear force because, well, it's one of those things because once you've tried it, people think you're good at it, and then you keep doing it. I was also in the transition. Well, I was in the transition radiation track on Atlas. I just dug up some emails mentioning Andrea from the combined test team in 2004. In 2008, I started a CERN fellowship working in the Trigger. Trigger menus, which was a lot of coordinating between physics groups and writing Python code to configure C++ code and some such. My research subjects were still supersymmetry, extra dimensions, ESM in general, and QCD. Then I came back to University of Copenhagen for a brief stint. As you can see, I had a 5-year contract, and then my wife couldn't get answers to a job application, so I sent a letter to a high school saying, I'll work for you if you hire her. So that was an investment in the 2 permanent positions. So time to have kids, house, and so on. And then after around 7 years, I thought, well, now I'm bored. So it's time to capitalize a bit on all that stuff over to the left. So what am I doing now? I work for Nykredit, which is the biggest mortgage broker in Denmark. We cover half the Danish mortgage market. So when I work with a real estate pricing model, I validate it. I work in model validation, so because it's kind of important to know what the value of your loans are when you've borrowed a lot of people, a couple of billion of kroner. I don't know how many 100 millions of euros that is. Denmark is a small country. Then we have credit risk models called IRB models, internal rating-based approach. We have rating models. What's the probability you will default? What's the loss if you default? Multiply those two numbers, you get a risk. If you do such a risk measurement, then you are obliged to validate it. Again, that's me. I hit the models and see if they break. And what do I rely on here? Well, from research, general coding skills. You remember from research that there would always come a problem you didn't know how to solve, and you just have to solve it eventually. So that will lead on to be systematic, don't give up. And well, Andrea said we were perfectionists. I say we had to meet a deadline back in the day. If someone was scooping you in research, you had to be there first. So that's something I also carry with me. And then, well, stakeholder management. Atlas was a big collaboration, a lot of people, a lot of interests. So I carry that with me in a large organization. Teaching. Well, amazing that they kind of like it in finance that I was a high school teacher, because I can tailor communication to who I'm talking to. Am I talking to a student that needs to know something? Am I talking to a boss that really wants to know as little as possible? He just wants to know if it's good or bad. And well, the instinct of sharing knowledge. Whenever I learn something new, then my colleagues learn something new, and I think they, well, I hope they appreciate that. So that was me in brief. I think I'm just going to stop here for now.
Thank you. Very nice, Rasmus. Great to hear from you. And we move to our next speaker, Zuzana Moravcova, who studied experimental particle physics at CTU in Prague, and she joined CERN for the summer school program. Upon completing her PhD at the Niels Bohr Institute in Copenhagen, she joined Ørsted, a leading company in the energy sector, where she works as senior risk model developer. Zuzana, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. I'm Zuzana. Thank you for introduction and thank you for having me. Because I think I'm the youngest panelist and also the shortest out of academia and shortest stay in academia, I'm going to start a little bit before the whole joining CERN, and that's actually with the masterclasses, because I believe a lot of you either participated in masterclasses as beginner day students or maybe organized them at your local uni or maybe work at CERN. So I joined masterclasses in the very big year for CERN, the Higgs discovery year, and I became instantly completely fascinated to that extent that I begged two of my friends that also kind of liked physics to join a local competition at CERN, at the local university, where we were talking about the standard model, and then we actually won a trip to CERN. And from that moment, kind of like my destiny was decided after that visit, and I knew what I wanted to do. And by the way, during that time, you were able to make such cool pictures. So the next steps were completely obvious. I just went to study physics. I became a member, not in one of the CERN collaboration, but of a Brookhaven Lab collaboration. And then I also joined the summer school that Alexandra mentioned. And I joined the CERN alumni network during that time as well. And the obvious next step was applying for PhDs. And I wanted to do that somewhere a little bit further away. And I landed in Copenhagen in a high energy heavy ion group at Niels Bohr Institute. And I also joined ALICE collaboration. And also later, besides physics, I also became ALICE junior representative. So I was a little bit involved in also like the let's say politics of the collaboration, representing juniors. There is a mandatory change of environment for all the Danish PhD students, where I was supposed to spend a couple of months at CERN. I was really excited about it, but my stay was supposed to start in mid-April 2020, and I guess I don't have to explain why that became fully remote. So unfortunately, that didn't go exactly as planned. During my work as PhD student, I was studying quark gluon plasma using anisotropic flow. For people out at ALICE, quark gluon plasma is a deconfined matter that existed within first microseconds after the Big Bang. I was studying this using flow, and actually went from a large collision system towards the smaller one, and I contributed to a paper that was actually showing the observation of QGP-like features in also relativistic proton-proton and proton-ion collisions. They were kind of a natural steps in that mind that a high school and me decided. So after the PhD, like postdoc or 2, or maybe CERN fellow, and then the only question was like whether I should go more towards one of the professorships, or maybe like trying to get the CERN staff, and of course the Nobel Prize, because it was the whole 2012 when I was deciding my whole career back in high school. And then things didn't work out exactly as I thought it would, and I started towards the end of my PhD questioning whether this is actually what I still want to do. And I started thinking about the work-life balance that I did not really have during my PhD, as probably many of you can relate. And then I also started thinking that I don't want to move every couple of years for all these postdocs, and I don't know, maybe 1 year in this country and then 2 somewhere else. And I completely fell in love with Copenhagen during my PhD, and I wanted to stay. And then there was the whole, I saw people at postdocs struggling with getting the next job and the next job and moving, and there was the job and financial stability. And I somehow just decided that maybe let's try something else. And I did, and it took a while, and it took a lot of patience, and I will be talking about that in the second part. But I managed to land a job as a risk model developer in a Danish energy company, Ørsted, that is focusing mostly on offshore energy, but also doing many other stuff. And what I'm doing on my day-to-day work is designing, developing, and implementing quantitative risk models. This all while learning all the financial stuff. And don't worry, if you're getting like a job like this, then the first months there will be a lot of financial lingo you will not understand at all, and later on you will somehow start using those words that you didn't understand before. And it's at the end of the day, it's a lot of coding and statistics. And I managed to also get a senior role after a year. And I'm not saying that for bragging, but I just think that academia made all of us really hardworking, fast learning, flexible individuals that can just, maybe the first step is very hard, but then you can just, they can see the potential in people like us with the background like us. Yeah, and that's gonna be all for me for now.
Thank you, Susanna. Very, very nice presentation. Thank you. We will now move to our next speaker, James Robinson, who was part of the Atlas collaboration for 10 years. James is a lead research software engineer at the Alan Turing Institute, where together with his team, he develops open source solutions for secure analysis of sensitive data. James, please.
Brilliant. Yeah. So, yeah, I had a similar kind of I guess, journey to some of the other people here, where I did a PhD at UCL in the UK. I did a postdoc at Manchester, also in the UK. I worked at DAISY, where Rasmus mentioned that he worked as well as a fellow for a bit. All of that on the Atlas experiment, and then I moved to the Alan Turing Institute, where I'm working as a research software engineer. So when I was working at Atlas, I worked across a range of different things, so jet physics, Dye-Higgs production, luminosity, Monte Carlo. I was a convener in a few different groups, SoftQCD and MC tuning and conditions as well. And yeah, I think very similar reasons to what a couple of other people have said around, wanting that job stability, wanting to be able to sort of settle down in one place, and also in my case, being closer to my family who live in London. So I've been at the Alan Turing Institute now for about 6.5 years. I really like it here. I think it's very similar to CERN. It's a research institute where ideas are really valued. I'm working with a lot of really intelligent people, again, very similar to CERN, which is nice. We're working on something that I think is, for the public good. And I feel like the stuff that I'm working on, has some immediate and some valuable impact. And I find that really important. And I get to work on a lot of different things. I can talk about a couple of them later, but really, like, I've worked on, 20 or 30 different projects while I've been here, and that's been really great. So how did I get here? So I started applying for jobs about 6 months before the end of my last contract. I was very lucky because I think I only applied for 2 jobs initially, and I got one of those. So, that worked out well for me. But yeah, I think definitely, like, I was starting to feel nervous coming up into the last 6 months of my contract, and starting to think about like what I wanted to do next. The team that I work in, research software engineering, we're really about trying to convert research code and research ideas into something that's operational, something that's going to have a real world impact, not just turn into another academic paper. So I found that although like a lot of my technical expertise was really useful, so obviously, big data was a big buzzword, like whenever this was like 6 years ago, machine learning, data analysis, all of that kind of stuff. There was a lot of experience from my time on Atlas and at CERN in general to draw on there. And obviously like programming experience is really useful. Python, like particularly, no one really cares about C++, it turns out. But yes, like Python experience is really useful. Things like, sort of writing code that's reproducible, that's usable by other people, like the quality of the code in the sense of like how easy it is for someone else to pick it up and use it. That was all really important. But actually a lot of like the non-technical stuff ended up being probably more important and more of the kind of thing that we look for when we're hiring people. So project management stuff, like any experience of sort of leading work, like leading physics analysis or, a hardware team or something, physics groups, any of that kind of stuff. And really like a lot like introspection, which I think is something that you do learn during a PhD, and certainly is, something you learn being part of these sort of larger projects, is that sometimes things don't work. And one of the most useful things you can do is to think about why they didn't work, and to be honest with yourself and with other people about like what you could have done differently and how you could do things better next time. And I think that's been a really useful skill that I definitely learned at CERN. So a couple of things that I've worked on. So this job is a mixture of data science and more kind of software engineering, also AI. So I don't know if it completely fits into this moving to data science category, but data science is in the name of the institute. We're the National Institute in the UK for Data Science and AI. So a couple of things that I've worked on, identifying hate speech in tweets with the sort of sentiment analysis, a project to build a cloud-based environment for enabling secure research on sensitive data. And now I'm currently leading our environment and sustainability work on forecasting. So you can see a few examples of this. We've got on the top left is air pollution forecasting in London. Top right is a global weather forecast, and bottom right is cloud forecasting, which has been part of a project we did with a solar power company who were trying to predict the effects of clouds on solar power output and how that impacts the amount of power that solar panels can produce. So yeah, there you can go here to our website to look at jobs. There aren't too many open at the moment because we're doing a bit of a kind of reorganization where we've really focused our work on these three big themes of work that we want to make a big impact in, which are environment, defense, and health. So a lot of people are being kind of internally reorganized, and a lot of jobs are being advertised only internally at the moment. But as and when externally focused jobs come up, they will be here. So if you're interested, please take a look.
Our next speaker is Stefania Vitillo, who worked at CERN contributing to space experiments on the International Space Station. After earning her PhD in physics, she joined a medtech startup developing ML models to predict antibiotic resistance. She now works as a senior data scientist at Takeda Pharmaceuticals. Stefania, please.
Thanks a lot for the nice introduction. So yes, I wanted to make a bit of a round trip on my experience. So going from cosmic ray physics to a medical startup fast, and then to Takeda. First, let's go quickly introduce my time in academia. It started basically with some student, first at Fermilab, then at DAISY, but I wanted really to understand more of what was coming out of space. So when I was doing the master thesis in Pisa, I joined the AMES collaboration. Then in Pisa, they developed the detector, the calorimeter, basically, and I reconstructed the energy. Basically, I worked on associating gamma rays to known sources. I moved then to CERN for my PhD, working on another subdetector of AMS, the tracker, but also on DAMP, particle explorer detector to detect also dark matter. At that time, it was in construction, so I was going basically every day to the cleaning room. I was doing a lot of test beams at CERN, and then in 2015, it was launched to space. And at the end of my PhD, I could do a proton flux measurement from space. But already at the end of my PhD, I understood that I liked very much this work, but I wanted to do it in a more impactful sector. So I call it middle ground. For me, it was the startup. So this position was advertised on the machine learning mailing list at CERN, and the co-founder were one from MIT, one from ETH. At ETH here in Zurich, the research group of the professor had one postdoc that I met in a previous summer student. So she helped me change the CV according to the private sector requirement mostly, but it was not completely free of academia buzzword. But still, I could get into the interview process. And as we see with the picture on the right, the images are very different from the test area. So it's a clinical lab. But I could apply a lot of skills that I developed. So I think 60-70% of my skills were really focusing in building things from scratch. So, and this is, I think, the perfect environment in a startup where basically you have nothing and you have to make with the MacGyver style, I call it. So basically with nothing, you have to build something. It can be a data pipeline, a processing flow, database later when you work with the software engineering team. There were also things that I was not familiar with, as for example, joining also VC meetings. So basically, venture capital, basically the person that gives the money to the startup, and also fine-tuning a lot of plots for the Food and Drug Administration that was supposed to buy our device to make it to make it approved in the clinical labs and in the hospital, because ideally we want to create a device that instead of 2 hours, but in 2 days, predicts antibiotic resistance, and this can really save patient life. Additionally, also it had a lot of paper reviews because, of course, we have to be up to speed with the recent trends. So this I liked very much. But as you know, so COVID hit basically every sector. Also, approvals for the FDA got or on hold or delayed, and I decided that I liked very much the sector, but I wanted to move basically to something else. So I saw that Akida website, I monitored it for some time, and when the position came out, I applied. And basically, since 2022, I'm part of the data science team for global manufacturing and supply. As you see on the image on the right, it's a global. The message here is not really how many resource manufacturing sites we have, but really it's a global environment that I like very much, coming from SEB. And it is big, more than 50,000 employees. And I wanted to spend a few words on the responsibilities, since really we strive to bring innovation to develop drugs in the end, because we want the time that pharma product goes to a patient is reduced. So we have this at our core. Then, of course, there are technical things like cross-functional work, automatizing of course this process, and also we partner with other institutions. Like, for example, I worked 2 years in partnership with MIT, really to introduce even more research in what we do. So I didn't know that it was possible. So it was too radical in the private sector. This is what I wanted to share. Back to you, Alexandra.
Thank you, Stefania. This brings us to our last speaker, Carlos Vergel Infante, who received his PhD in physics from Iowa State University on his work related to the Higgs boson decay with the ATLAS experiment. Carlos also holds an MBA from the University of Illinois. Currently, he's a customer success data analyst at Open Systems, which is a Swiss network security company. Carlos.
Thank you, Alexander. Perfect. So yeah, since being the last one, I think I have a similar story to most of the previous panelists. So I will just kind of try to highlight a little bit of the difference I was, as it was mentioned, I did my PhD at Iowa State, and I work at CERN and at Atlas, which seems to be a team in this panelist group. And one of the highlights, not only in academia but of my life, was actually being part of the group who first observed the decay of a Higgs boson to a pair of big quarks in 2018, I believe. And it was just a very exciting to work with people so smart and so dedicated into this process. However, when I was coming to the end, as everyone here mentioned, I did really enjoy my PhD, but I didn't see my future in academia. It was not something that appealed to me. So I started mostly talking to postdocs and PhD that were in my team or in the HBV team that they have gone to academia, and I just meet with them for 30 minutes. Since I knew them personally, I was able to ask all kind of questions and kind of have no filter. And they all seem happy. They all seem excited. Their jobs were very interested. So I just started to get excited about it. Something that hasn't been mentioned here, and it was a little bit hard for me, was that everyone say that my skills at CERN will be useful in academia, but I couldn't really see like a tangible how that would be. So I did this program called Science to Data Science. This used to be a in-person program for 5 weeks in London. Now I think it's all online. And there I was able to work with a group of other 3 people with PhDs at a company called RedBrain for 5 weeks. And then we just developed a couple of machine learning models for them. And that was the moment that I was like, okay, this is what I'll be doing. I like, from physics, I always liked the game of always having a question, looking at data, solve it, and trying to move along. And that's what I saw industry could also provide me. So let me tell you a little bit what happened after that. I have a couple of different roles, something like data analyst, data science, data engineer. They all kind of merge together at some point, and you always have to do a little bit of everything. I landed a job at eBay about 5 months after I graduated from my PhD. This was very interesting. It was also a global company, obviously, with an office in Bern and in Zurich. And I started developing A/B tests for them. So there was a lot of experimentation, basically sending coupons to everyone in the world. So every time you send a coupon, the company is losing money. So you gotta make sure you optimize for that. Also, there were a lot of team-created machine learning models. So we needed to implement them to be able to recommend items. So if you ever have been at eBay and you receive an email saying like, hey, you should buy this item because you bought something, I was probably involved into that because we used to send information in homepage, email, push notifications. And I got very interested into business. I didn't know anything. My PhD, master's, and undergrad was all in physics. So I decided to take an MBA. This was a 2-year program that I was able to do online. And it really helped me shape where I wanted to go, which was actually facing a little more the customer, just be more involved into the decisions and move into a little more strategic roles. So I started a company. I started in a company called Open Systems. It's a very interesting company in Zurich that they focus on network security. It's located in more than 180 countries. And the interesting part is in the past 6 months, I have been working to get a certificate for cybersecurity and network engineering. So this is one of the things that I like about industry. It doesn't seem like there is a linear path. Depending on the things that you enjoy, that you want to try, you just get a little bit more flexibility. Open Systems will also be at the end of this talk if you want to chat with the talent acquisition team. I have really liked it, and especially because I'm building data products there, especially to show these items to executive teams, executive team customers, and for internal use as well. And kind of here, just kind of matching kind of the business side of things and the teaching part, which I really love in my PhD, and the technical part. I have also for the past 6 months just kind of write this weekly newsletter, trying to explain data to non-technical audience through just everyday stories. So if you want to connect, we'll be here in the breakout room. Here is my LinkedIn. Here you got the newsletter, and please join and talk to Open Systems. Okay, back to you, Alexandra.
Thank you, Carlos. In fact, big thank you to all of our panelists that were very interesting presentations. I think we are ready to start our Q&A session. So just a reminder that we have the Q&A room open, so you can upvote the questions. The audience can upvote the questions and also add new questions, and we will ask our panelists to give answers. All right. So one of the topics that was kind of trending was about the topic that the data science and analytics are undeniably oversaturated. However, as physicists, if we need to transition out of academia, our options are limited. So how can we stand out? Today, many professionals hold PhDs specifically in data science rather than physics, or even some employers prefer to hire someone with a degree in CS rather than someone with a high energy physics background. So what kind of advice would you give to a particle physicist trying to make it in the industry? So does any of our panelists? Yes, I see that James, you would like to comment.
Yeah, so I'm just going to comment from my experience at the Alan Turing Institute, and I realise we're somewhere between academia and industry, so it's not going to be from a completely industry perspective. But I work in a team of software engineers, and I think there are 40 of us, and one person has a computer science background, and we have, I think, 4 people who have a background. So yeah, like I don't think this is necessarily a problem. I think the jobs where you really need computer science expertise are actually like very few. You know, like maybe if you're going to want to go and work in Google, like really optimizing some, you know, key part of like speeding up their search algorithm or something, it's really important that you know your, you know, like algorithmic data structures back to front. But for a lot of the data science work, it's really about being comfortable doing this work with data, being comfortable with things not having precise answers, and you know all of these kind of uncertainties that you have to deal with in like your work at CERN, like actually translate really well. I think sometimes the problem is understanding how they translate, and that's not always obvious. But yeah, I don't think that certainly like where I work, we would particularly be more excited about hiring someone who had data science or computer science qualifications over anything else. We hire people from all sorts of backgrounds.
Thank you. I think Carlos wants to add something.
Yeah, I would just quickly add that sometimes when they talk about data science, they only talk about machine learning models, or like people that have a more very defined structure. And I think it was mentioned, I believe it was Susanna, is like we do have a very background, everyone with PhDs, that like we are just, because of the nature to get a PhD, you have to jump into something and learning new tools and learning stuff. All of those jobs that they are called data science, they usually have to do a lot of data engineering, a lot of just data promotion, a lot of data analytics. It's just, you always have to be jumping into things that are different. So just kind of use that card always to solve yourself that like, you know, you know the tools now, but like you can learn anything you need, that you're more just than a person who knows how to build machine learning models.
Okay, thank you. We have a comment from Elisabetta. Would you like to speak out loud?
Sure. I think the problem that was mentioned in the question, it's more specific to exactly when you apply for the job as a data scientist. And it's not a professional that is looking at your CV, so it's not someone that actually understands what a physicist does, but an HR person. And if they see that someone is a candidate with a data science PhD and another one is a physicist, they would usually just go for the data scientist. I mean, I talk for personal experience because I am applying to jobs now, and this is what's happening to me. So yeah.
All right, thank you for sharing. Would anyone like to comment? Maybe, I think, Stefania, you have your hand up.
I wanted to add that also flexibility is very important. I think this is a really strong plus that we have, because I remember during my PhD, the day was so packed with teaching. I mean, I had to plan everything. So this, I think, from the World Economic Forum for perspective for 2030, is really an important skill. So do not undervalue this. The rest, I think, it's really frameworks. They change all the time. So 2 years ago, GenAI was not around. So there are all these tools. So I don't think this matters really. So important is also to consider this. Then there is the competition. So so in Switzerland you compete with all the world. We have to consider this. It's not really only that it's difficult to coming out from academia, but I think really the competition is very high. So don't be discouraged also because of this.
Thank you. I think that Andrea, you wanted to comment as well.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to follow up on Elisabetta's comment about the problem that often the CV is read by a non-technical person. So that is it's true. So I think it's very important that when we apply to a job, we really try to read behind what is written in the job opening, right? Because if the position that we are applying is really a machine learning engineer, for example, it's probably something quite technical that someone that studied that thing would have an advantage with respect to a physicist. However, in other cases, if it's really more data science, or as was said before, probably is something that is more general, where the general purpose spirit of a physicist could help a lot. However, it's true that often the CV is read by a hiring manager that cannot have a technical background. So this is important to use a language that the company can understand. So let's try to avoid the language that is specific to CERN and try to adapt what we know to a more general field. So that would be my suggestion. However, it strongly depends on the company. So in other companies, the first screening is not done by HR, but is actually done by the hiring manager that has at least a partial understanding of the technical problem that we are looking at. Another trick could be to, at the beginning, try to apply to medium-sized companies, because very large companies may have a process in place where the technical part and the technical understanding comes only later. And while medium-sized company may have involvement of technical hiring manager early on, given their size of the company. So that would be my suggestion.
That's already quite a lot of useful tips, I think. Susanna, do you want to say add to this?
Yes, it's Andrea covered a lot of that already, but it was really that yes, we have a background in physics and we should not undermine it, like the whole work at CERN, but we should much more, when applying to industry jobs, it should be more focusing on all the transferable skills, like maybe don't discuss the details of or the technicalities of your data analysis, but more focus, like mention big data, or based on the mention data analysis, data science, if based on the posting, like really focus on the buzzwords, like they might sound empty, like that we are problem solvers and stuff like that, but we are doing that at the end of the day, and you just need to show that to the hiring manager.
All right, thank you. James, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I was just going to agree with everyone who said something before. I think almost everything I was going to say has already been said. I work for a company that is small enough that HR don't ever look at CVs. They're always reviewed completely by people in the team. Perhaps there are some companies that are really looking for something specific, like a degree in data science. But I think, yeah, it's much more likely that it's going to be along the lines that Susanna said, which is you need to think about how to translate the things you can do into the language of the people, the company you're applying for. And you want someone to look at your CV and say, I can see why this person solves the problem I have, not just, I think this person looks like they're intelligent and they know what they're talking about. You want them to look at you and think, I want this person working with me.
Thank you. I think actually the next very popular question was already partially addressed with some of your answers. But I would like to share with you that there is a general interest about, how do you approach the search, and do you first self-study the necessary skills if you see maybe there is a gap, and list them on your CV before job searching, or do you secure the position first and learn on the job? Any advice on how to approach this effectively? Yes, Susanna.
Yeah, I have just very small example where I don't want to say that I shamelessly lied on my CV, but I saw that a lot of data science jobs were asking for knowing some SQL. So I opened the tutorial page. I saw that it's very, very easy. And after reading 2 minutes, I concluded that if I need that, I can learn it overnight. So I added SQL on my CV, and now in my job, I'm using SQL on a daily basis. But I didn't become a pro before going to the interview. I just knew that if needed, I can learn it very, very quickly.
All right, that's a very, very nice advice. Carlos?
Yeah, no, actually very similar to Susanna. Every time I have had an interview and they ask me about a tool that I don't know, I'm like, look, I can learn and I have experience from my PhD on like learning new tools. Now, when it comes to applying jobs, actually just start applying now. Most likely you're gonna find jobs that are not gonna be that interested, or but at least you get the habit of practicing how to present yourself, how to present your CV, how to do all those things. Because the reality is, when I applied for the first job, I had no experience. So even just getting myself CV ready and just screw up my first interview, that actually helped me when the actual job that I wanted, like when I had the opportunity. So just don't be afraid, just try it. Take it as an experiment. You will have experience in that. So
Andrea, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I think this is linked to the famous question, should I get certifications or not? Should I do specific courses or not? So I think, in my opinion, and when I hire, or there is a specific need behind the opening. So, I need an SQL engineer, just to continue with the example of SQL, and then it will be clearly said in the job opening, right? And so in that case, that if you really want that job, you will have beforehand to learn that thing. Another example is, a specific cloud infrastructure knowledge. So there, the company is searching a person to cover a specific need. However, if that is not specified in the job, I would not spend too much time, learning, doing certifications or doing up courses just to enrich the CV. Usually that is, it can be done, as we said before. Often it's very, very easy to get enough to start the thing.
All right, thank you. Rachel, would you like to comment on another question about the transferable skills?
Thank you, Alexandra. I just wanted to say to everybody that this is something that comes up a lot. How do people, how do you translate the skills that you develop whilst you're here at CERN so that they are industry friendly? And we're looking for volunteers in the Office for Alumni Relations, because we'd like to create a glossary that you can refer to, where we have a list of the different skills and talents developed at CERN, and then we will ask our alumni to help us translate those, so that, keywords that you can use on your CVs. So if you would like to help us with that and be involved, then you can contact me or my colleagues Simona and Alina in the Office for Alumni Relations, and we'll try and get that prepared for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. I've seen Stefania also raising your hand. I don't know if you want to add something. Yeah.
Yes, I think I will explain it also after, but I think I wanted to add something to Andrea. I think certifications are important for knowing a bit more in-depth subject. I don't like them in the CV. When I like them, I change CV. So I don't think you should pollute the CV with this, but really, if you really want to know something during the hiring process, because it's really long. So in the meantime, you upskill also yourself with something that is useful. I think, speaking from my perspective, it was useful, but of course not to add them in the CV. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Thank you. Another question from our audience. Do you have an advice on the moment to switch the career path? Do you transition to industry right after the PhD, after a few years of postdoc? What advice can you give to someone who has done more than 8 years of postdoc? All right, Rasmus, I think you are keen to answer this one.
Well, I think you took a PhD in physics engineering or something because you wanted it. So for me, it's strange to get a PhD and not take it for a spin. So I say it's a good idea to go out and try a postdoc or two, but for God's sake, don't run out the contract. It's not fun to stand around being almost 50 years old and run out of temporary contracts. So take it for a spin, but quit while you're ahead. I don't know if that helped at all. Sorry.
Okay, very practical. Thank you. James?
Yeah, I was going to say something very similar. So I did 2 postdocs and I enjoyed both of them. And when I was thinking about whether I wanted to do a third one, I didn't really. So that was the point that for me, I thought I wanted to leave and look at other options. But if you still find that, you know, you're really excited and interested in the stuff that you're doing and you want to keep doing it, you can do that. I don't think there's too long you can spend in a postdoc or doing multiple postdocs. I mean, for instance, like my boss at the moment was an academic. He was a professor in seismology in the US, and he was doing that for a few years before he decided, oh yeah, I'm going to go and leave and move country and move industry completely, and that was fine. So it's definitely possible really at any point in your career.
Okay, thank you. A question regarding work-life balance. How challenging in terms of deadlines, workload is the work environment in AI and data science industries in comparison to academia? Okay, maybe James, you go.
I have a really good work-life balance, like really no comparison to what it was like working at CERN. Like I never work outside 9 to 5 at all, like for any reason. I have slightly compressed hours so that I can do 1 day every 2 weeks of childcare. And my work are really supportive of that. We've got really good holiday, and you get in trouble if you don't take all your holiday. We've got really good like HR support for taking things like, you know, parental leave, bereavement leave, like mental health days if you need them, all of this stuff. Again, like only speaking for one company, but like it is something that is done a lot better than was true in academia, I think.
Okay, very, very interesting. Rasmus?
I've never made so much money and worked so little, and that includes my time as a high school teacher. So, yeah, private enterprise is not always what people make it out to be. With regards to deadline, in physics, they were absolute. If the detector had to go in, it had to go in. So I think there's rarely something burning here in the same sense, at least in Nykredit where I work.
Okay, Carlos, do you want to add something?
No, I think it has been mostly mentioned, but yeah, that has been my experience as well. However, the pace of projects is faster in industry than it is in academia because you always have to beat your competitor to competition. So it is really fast. It's more intense in your 9 to 5, but then you do get all this first. And I think when I was doing my PhD, it was not really work-life balance. It was just a work of passion. So when I was writing my thesis, I just worked a crazy amount of hours that like I would just not do for an actual work. But for the thesis, it was okay. So that's the difference.
All right. Stefania?
Yes, I think what Carlos said, I think it's not only compressed, but you have to be really efficient in these hours where you work because everybody is online almost in these hours. It depends on the time zone, but yes, and of course, at least we have. I think also in the contract that we should not back too much the other colleagues in the evening, in weekends. So this is very nice. So you don't arrive on Monday morning at the office and you find you are overflowed of emails. So this not. So this.
That's a very interesting theme emerging, that it seems that, at least from what you're all saying, is that the industry is not at all expecting you to work, long hours or react to emails outside of working hours. So that's really positive. Thank you. There is a question regarding the best place to look for a job, and I think Rachel, maybe you would like to comment on that.
Thank you, Alexandra. So yes, the best place I would say to look for a job is to go onto alumni.cern. For those of you who haven't seen it yet, you've got a jobs platform. You have events like this. And I just want to leave you with the idea that I think more than 70% of people don't find their job through looking at a job advert. They find it through their connections. And the best place to make connections with like-minded people who know what skills and talents you have is via the alumni network and through our super alumni that you see here today. That's my 2 cents on it, and I think perhaps the other alumni might also be able to give their opinion on that point. Thank you.
Okay, we do still have a couple of questions on the chat, so I will let them be answered, but we should be wrapping up because we are approaching the break time. So a question from Janos. Would you like to read your question, Janos?
Yeah, sure. So usually when I look for jobs in data science, I did not really see junior positions. What could be jobs which are similar where people can learn steps towards doing data science?
Yeah, so that's a bit of a tricky question. When I started applying for jobs as a PhD, I always have like two ways of the company will see my profile. One where like, oh, you have no business, no industry business experience, so you are very junior. Or other people will be like, oh, you have a PhD, so you have a lot of experience. You should either be a data science or a senior data science. Obviously, if you ask postdoc, then that. So I only got to know that until I went into the interview, and that just kind of gave me. But yeah, don't underestimate the information that you have, like everything you learn about statistics and modeling and coding. But I have seen junior data science positions that are interns as well. But I think if you have a PhD in physics, I think it's pretty safe to say a data science position, especially when you work at CERN, because a lot of what you do is on your computer coding, doing a statistics analysis, and that. Like what I do right now is the same thing. I get the data, I work on my laptop, I do statistical analysis, and I get it. Like that's my PhD was basically a data analyst project with more fancy things, but at the base was just exactly the same thing.
Stefania, do you want to comment on
It is not actually that also hackathons were very useful. Even if you see the gap, I don't want to apply to the junior. I want to apply directly to the data sets. I think hackathons were good. You have already you work in team, physical challenge of really a business. So this helps. And if you have more time, also an internship could be good also to get a feeling how is the company, because it doesn't mean that the company is the best company in the world. Maybe in 6 months you understand how it is, and it adds up to the CV. Okay, I have this experience, so now finally I can go to the company that I want, for example, in the meantime. Yeah.
Thank you. James?
Yeah, I was just going to say a couple of things. So one is you are doing data science already, so you don't need to learn how to do it. This is what you do. And then the other thing is we do have junior data science jobs, but they're typically aimed at people who don't have a PhD. So yeah, I think don't be afraid of applying for a job that you feel is like, implies more seniority or more experience of doing data science than you've got. When I got this job, I applied for it as a regular like data science job, and when I got offered the job, it was as a senior position because of the experience I talked about during my interview and like where they thought that fitted into the kind of structures and the experience that people had. So yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about that.
Okay, thank you. I would suggest that we wrap up now the Q&A part. There is still a couple of questions that we can take probably in the next session. So Elisabetta, I encourage you. We will have the tips and tricks in the next session, so we can come back to your question. All right, welcome back after the break. I hope that all our panelists are back with us. We are about to start the tips for successful transition part, where each of our panelists will share with us their hints and their experience. So that will be a very short 3-minute blocks, and then we will again discuss the questions.
So I think a lot has been mentioned already, so I will just try to just focus on a couple of these. But when I went to academia, when I went to industry, I saw two myths that the people had about people from academia, and one was they would really assume we were smart, which it's good, but they were concerned if we were able to express all this technical and complicated stuff to non-technical people. So my recommendation on what I did was always highlight my teaching experience. Especially I graduated with honors in teaching, so I kept bringing this up. It's like, no, like I explain physics, these people who didn't have like engineering background, and how I could help with that. So that actually was helpful for the company. And the second one, and this especially applies for postdocs, I think sometimes industries think that if you have a PhD and you are not being a professor, then you are just kind of giving up, and then your plan B is go to a company. So they can be a little bit afraid that you might not be enthusiastic, or you might not really care as much about the job. So I think it's very important to show enthusiasm of why you would like that particular job, what areas that interest you from that position, and how they're trying to help closing the gap. I will focus on the number 4. I think the most important part to both get a job, but also to explore new, like, different careers, because I think one of the things in industry is that there are so many paths that you can take that it can be sometimes overwhelming. So something that is helpful is just find someone who works in something related to data, but in a different industry, meet with this person and just be honest, ask them how their daily life just operates, because that can give you a lot of insight. What you don't want is to find a job in an industry and then realize very quickly that you don't like it. Just a very quick example. I was looking for a new job last year. A friend of a friend of a friend works in insurance, and I thought to myself, I think insurance sounds really boring. But I ended up meeting with this person. He actually had a PhD in math. He was working with basically the risks of companies and how they can predict that, and they use a lot of like mathematical modeling. And I remember leaving that meeting be like, that could be something that I can see myself doing. So just be very open-minded, just talk to people. People are usually very friendly to talk to, and they want to share their experience. So just try that and just be very open. They will help you with all those tips and really understanding what the day-to-day job like is. And again, just really practice the interview. Just try to get as many, especially, I know the Swiss market because that's what I have worked. It is a tight market, and then you have to send a lot of applications to be able to start processes. So the faster that you're in, the quicker that you're sending applications, the better for you and for your chances to land the job that you really want.
Stefania, would you like to share your tips?
Also, this lightning book, I have a list actually of books, because I like very precisely to understand exactly how to do it. Yeah, networking is great, but I wanted also to understand it more in depth how it is going. And I think this book is written for computer scientists. Of course, you adapt it. We are physicists, so there is no problem. You adapt everything that is written for you, but really helps you write the CV. This is really a guide. I think I read it in 1 week. I completely changed the CV. I think this book is great. So I wanted to give this as a reference. And when you are in the interview process, because this kind of CV gets you the interviews. Then there is the challenge of the interview process that is very long, and you have to train very long and be very fast in the answers. And I think I found this book that helped really to get to a lot of questions. You don't need every question, of course. You skim. It depends on the company, but you have really a real set of questions asked in Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, whatever, that gets you trained. Because in the interview process you have to be trained. That is no other excuse. And then to go more in depth, because you need in-depth knowledge. It depends which one, and so it's not very so it depends which one. This is my library. I didn't read in depth all the books, but I come from the physics background. I like so I like paper. I like to read, and you skim, you read some chapters. You have the Git repo as reference. These are really great. And I think this one is from January, this AI engineering. So it's still, it has a good reference tips to what actually this field is about in this year, because next year it will be completely different. So LLM application will come also later. So I think it's good. You have to be in this field, you have to be up to date always. And then, as I mentioned before, certification are important for you, really, to go more in depth when you start. So you do one or something, you are curious about one skill that is mentioned on one application, go and look only this. You don't need the certification for the CV again. I think I mentioned already hackathons. I had some space, so I think quickly I mentioned these other two because ChatGPT really revolutionized our ways of working. Since I don't know, since I joined now, I code in a different, completely different way. So I'm helped always with our internal ChatGPT to. Since now I don't have to spend time on Stack Overflow page because my code breaks at some point. It's much faster. You can work now really on the problem to solve. So this is good. And yes, like Carlos mentioned, so be open-minded, so growth mindset, so the ability to think, okay, I'm not there yet. I didn't get this job. Okay, I will take the next one that will be much better. So this is my suggestion. Back to you.
Thank you, Stefania. James, would you like to go next?
Sure. So those are some really nice, very specific tips, and mine are a lot more general. So I hope that's okay. But yeah, I think my first one is like when you're looking for stuff, think about what you value and try and find a company that shares those values. And Carlos kind of touched on this a bit, like talking to people and finding out what they do and seeing whether that's a thing you want to do. But like also think about like, is that a company you want to work for? Like, are the aims of the company like something that you care about and that you would be happy like helping them get to that point? And if not, then don't work for them. And I think that's important. Then the second one, again, is a thing that a few people have touched on, which is like, why does your work matter? Like people are advertising jobs because they have a problem and they want someone to solve that problem. And you want to come across as someone who's doing important things that's helping other people solve their problems. And you want to make them think, this person could solve my problem. And, the stuff that Carlos mentioned about the STAR method, some things people have talked about earlier about, how to phrase what you've done in a way that is about problem solving, I think are really important in kind of structuring CVs and cover letters. Moving on to that as well, CVs and cover letters are important. Like you're not going to get a job just based off your CV or your cover letter, but as we sort of discussed earlier, based on the chat comments about whether HR or the hiring manager are looking at your CV, if you have the wrong things in your CV and cover letter, or you're missing the important things, you will never get it in front of the person who can actually look at it and understand it. So yeah, think carefully about how you structure your CV. There's not a single right way to do it. But the more people you can show it to and get tips and ideas from, the better. The more times you apply for jobs and you look at the things that they are looking for and you try and pull those together into something more general that you can say, oh yeah, no, I do have this skill that these 10 different jobs are looking for, and I need to talk about that. That's useful. Like in my particular company, we really look for very adaptable people. We want generalists who are able to start working on, for instance, analyzing historical documents and trying to do optical character recognition on them one day to suddenly the next day be doing weather forecasting, and the day after that be working on like a cyber defense problem. We really want people who have the ability to generalize and the ability to take skills from one thing to another thing. And I think that is a thing that people at CERN really do have, and you should make the most of it and emphasize that that's a skill that you have. Show that you can see the bigger picture around what you're doing. You're not just focused on like the tiny thing that you've done, but you see why that's important and why it fits into something larger and why that's important. And then the last thing, sort of, I think I mentioned this before, but like, why should people want to work with you? Like, try and think about like, why are you a good person to work with? Like, like, I guess it's not just about like your technical skills, but also about your soft skills, about being a person who's good to get on with, a person who works well in teams. Like you can demonstrate that from anything you do at CERN, right? You're always working in teams with people and working with people who are like often like very distributed around the world or whatever, and those sort of skills are really important and very valued, I think. So yeah, those are my tips.
Thank you, James. I give it to Zuzanna.
I have a couple of tips, and I organized them more to address the challenges that people going from academia to industry might face. The first one, and we mentioned it many times already today, is it's very challenging to identify transferable skills. My tip is to, if you don't know, then ask others, or maybe stalk former colleagues, check LinkedIn of people with similar backgrounds, job postings, maybe use the buzzwords Don't focus, it was just mentioned a minute ago, don't focus only on the hard skills, like all the technical stuff, but maybe also there's the communication. We're going to conferences, we're talking to expert audience, to like a more general public, if you're talking also to at like some outreach events. So like it can be really really tricky to identify these transferable skills, but it's really, really important to do so. Then it might be challenging to just go out there, but at the end of the day, you have nothing to lose. So, and the worst thing you can get is a no, or actually no reply, which is more common than a no, to be completely transparent. But yeah, it's tricky to go there, but there's nothing to lose. It can be challenging to support oneself in the job search period. And that's why I would strongly recommend to people that still have time to think ahead. And this is really country by country dependent, but maybe you have some social insurance you can pay for, and so that you would get some unemployment benefits in the future, or like try to check in the country where you are right now whether this is an option or no, or like maybe save up, or just like be ready that maybe for a couple of months you will be without a stable income, and you will have to, I mean, we all have a rent to pay, so we kind of need to think ahead with all of this. It might be challenging to know your worth. It's also very tricky to ask for money, and also coming from academia where you are like, oh, you are this many years after PhD, which means you're getting this amount of money and no questions asked, because that's where you are in the table. But in industry it's slightly different, and this is again very country dependent. You should check either Glassdoor, or maybe in your country there is some union, which is a very big thing in Denmark. So you can go to the union of all the STEM people and put into this calculator how many years of experience you have, whether you have PhD, whether you have this and that, and then it will tell you the range where you should see yourself. And maybe it's much more than you originally thought. And yeah, don't be afraid to ask for that. And don't be also afraid to say no if somebody wants to undervalue you, because it also might be the case if it's your first job. And finally, it's very challenging to stay patient. So get a hobby or something when you're just sitting at home waiting for these emails that can sometimes take many, many weeks to reply for the job that you really want. Just my tiny tip: when I was unemployed, the Hogwarts Legacy was released for PlayStation. So I was very, very busy just gaming, and I was not refreshing my email every 5 minutes as I was before the game was released. So just stay busy, just so you're not going crazy from the waiting.
Thank you, Susanna. Rasmus, would you like to share your tips?
And now apparently I'm screen saving. So I put a little parenthesis up there as if I knew what I was talking about. As always, there has to be sort of a disclaimer about survivorship bias here. If you ask a lottery winner what was a good thing for him to do, he would say buy lottery tickets. So this is my view of it. And the first thing is, I think, much along the lines of what James said. Think about where you're going and why. Why do you want to go there? Does this company have a value that you can identify yourself with? What is pulling you there? Don't focus on what's pushing you away from where you are, but what is making you go there exactly, because you're going to need that way of thinking. That's one thing. The next thing is that when you read these job listings, you will not recognize yourself. You're talking about transferable skills, and there's a lot of lingo here. I didn't find the job I have now. A friend of mine who works with tax said, hey, try apply for this. Just you say you're bored, try this. And I'm like, I don't know anything about finance. This says senior analyst. What, are you crazy? And this is how I ended up here. So have your network, send your jobs and make them explain to you why they're sending you this job. So some of you are old enough to have been writing research proposals. That's a lot of this and that is very interesting. I'm so cool and I'm so good at this. And that's not the way a job application is. So if you're writing a cover letter, talk about the company, show that you understand what the company is doing, show that you understand the position that you want to fill. Then have the CV tell them that you're awesome. That's sort of the job division between those two things. And speaking of CVs, don't just have a one-size-fits-all CV that you send out everywhere, because that won't work. You need to tailor it a little, because if you're the hiring manager, then you get a lot of applications, and you go, okay, I asked for some skills, are they there? Make sure that they're easy to find. If they say Python, SQL, whatnot, write it so it's easy to see. Also, use correct language, right? We just talked about network. We've been talking about network all the time. Have someone tell you what things are called. Stakeholder management, for example. That's coordination between physics groups. And I'm sure there are other things that are relevant to the company that you're applying to. So read the listing and use it. Use what's written there and make sure you cover it. Now you will go to interviews, and I don't know who, or what was it, Carlos, who said that you bombed the first couple of interviews. That's fine, but when you go there, use examples. You've been writing a lot of things about how cool you are at different things. Be prepared for a question of, oh, how did you use that? Have an example ready. Be prepared to answer the question, so what did you do when it didn't work? Be concrete always. Have a list of examples. It's okay. They want you to prepare for this interview. Also, a little cyber stalking is okay. Look up the manager on LinkedIn. Look up the company. You don't need to know the name of the manager's children, but know a little about the place you're applying to. And finally, remember the first tip. Why are you going there? When you're sitting in front of them, they want to know why you apply for their position. And you need to have an answer ready. They don't want to hear about how you need a job or how you don't want to be in research anymore. They want to know why you're coming here. So maybe that turned out to be a little more than 5 sentences. I'm sorry. That's what I have for now.
Thank you, Rasmus. Andrea, we finish with your tips.
So I have to say that I can only second all the points that were said before up to now. So I actually think here I'm repeating a lot what was said. So maybe I should concentrate just on the last point here. The others are really already covered. But for me, as a hiring manager, when I've been hiring people, the most important part to me was, and we were at the interview, that the candidate was able to tell me a story about his past experience. Right? It was not a list of tasks accomplished, but he was able to explain why these were important for the experiment, for the group which were in participating, doing research with. What was the personal contribution? It's not important to know that the analysis produced a wonderful paper. What did you do exactly? What was your contribution? Even if it may seem small, it's the part, it's the story around that, behind that, that is really what can make a difference. And also, don't be afraid to tell what did not work, what was not perfect in a past activity, as long as you show that you have been able to reflect on that and learn a lesson for the future. It's not a problem to say we did this, we did not achieve what we expected, but we managed anyway to improve the process for the next time. And maybe I can say something else, as it was said before, but let's stress it. When you're searching a job, it's not only you searching a job, but it's also a company that has a need. So it's a conversation between a similar person that both have a need and can offer something to solve a need. So the company is searching you. So again, I think one thing that was said before, don't underevaluate your contribution.
All right, thank you. That was really a richness of insights. I think we can now move on to the questions. So we did have a question regarding the technical tests just before we broke. We had a break, and also it seems that in general there is some interest from the audience. How do you prepare for the technical tests? If you had to pass through this kind of technical assessments, what is the value of this? How do you prepare for it? Is there anyone that would like to answer? Yes, Andrea and Rasmus. Andrea, maybe you start.
Yeah, so in some cases, jobs are extremely popular and it's easy to get hundreds of applications for a single opening. So hiring is a costly process. So for companies, they need to have a process there. And I have to confess that in some cases, these tests are used to filter out candidates that would not continue the process. They just mass applied. So it happens often in which people apply to a job and they don't even take the first technical assessment. So unfortunately, company use this test also for this reason. So I would say, in any case, give it a try if you're interested to work in the company. And what can happen is that you don't proceed in the test. And usually the services that do this kind of tests also provide services for candidates to train, clearly not on the question that you will find, but on similar parts. So you should give it a try in any case and find online one of the training systems for that.
Thank you. I think Rasmus, you wanted to add something?
Well, tests are different, and then some tests, the ones we use, are mainly about personality. So you can't really prepare for a personality test. At least turns out that could be the recipe for a very bad day for everyone. So the only technical things I've ever come across are technical interviews, and well, they're kind of free form.
Okay, and I see Stefania also, you would like to comment? Maybe also some insights about the kind of technical interviews that your current employers do, or
yes, exactly. I want to start the case study process. So they take really a problem of the company, then they anonymize it for several reasons, and they give it to you. So basically, you have 2 days to do this case study, and it's really nice. You have also the time to reflect. Okay, what should I use? How I analyze this data, and it's also a good way to understand the tools that the company is using, if they align with what I want to do. So I think it allows to not be prepared on the spot, but with 2 days, you have some time to reflect on the problem and to do it also. So yes, I think, but many companies do it. I think instead a bigger the tech companies, I think I had around with Microsoft. They want to get rid of a lot of engineers at the first step. So there is it's really a challenge, an online challenge for 4 hours, and we have to make this. So it's the really first step. Yeah, and that is also already very long. Yeah. So yeah, it needs some preparation. But the case study is very nice for both sides. So you understand what you will do, and so both the company and you.
Thank you, James.
We do the thing that Stefania just talked about, which is talking a bit about an example of a type of problem that you might encounter if you're doing this job and see how you would approach it. And we also do a kind of technical interview, which is show us some code that you've written that did something and talk us through how it does it and why you made the decisions you made. So it's not a sort of generic coding test or something. It's really about like show us something that you've done.
Okay, so we move to the next question. That will maybe show us a little bit, how much do you enjoy your roles in the academia? So if someone offered you a permanent job at CERN now, would you consider coming back? Or would you say that once you make this transition to industry, you are not really so keen on getting back to CERN? Yes, James.
My wife still works in physics, so I would certainly consider it, although I'm sure she would be the one who'd get a job at CERN, not me.
All right, thank you. Rasmus?
I don't miss the traveling, so no.
All right. Stefania?
I think I liked a lot what I was doing. What I didn't like it was the teaching, was really getting a lot of my time. But I think if you have a permanent position back at CERN, so I will think, but when I left, So if you made this transition already since some time, it depends where you are. So to relocate again with all the family, yeah, it depends. But yeah, the work was really nice. So it's yeah, it's a timing process. It's like this.
Thank you. Carlos?
I mean, I really enjoy my time at CERN. To be honest, I would just look at it as any other job opportunity that I have. See, I will see what the options were, if that is the conditions will be better from where I am, and if that fits my schedule or not. I think, as I mentioned before, what I like about industry is having this flexibility. I feel like for sometimes I do want to travel. There are other times where I might not feel like in my life. So depending on that, I will decide if it makes sense or not to come back to CERN, at least for a period of time.
Thank you. And Zuzana?
It would be very, very tempting because of very good memories and stuff. But I think just the fact that I don't have to, or I don't work weekends and evenings, would probably just win in the long shot. So it would be a sad no, but a no.
All right. Thank you. Still on this comparison between CERN and industry, do you feel in your current roles or in industry in general, do you feel pressure to move up to the next role? Since we know that competition in academia is hard. Well, our audience is wondering if you have reached some kind of serenity with respect to finding the new job in case it's needed, or how do you feel in your current roles?
My current role is, well, I guess all the jobs below sort of like the executive level at my company are in bands, a bit like you might see in a university. So within a particular job, there's a maximum you're going to get paid, and if you're interested in getting paid more than that, then you need to be promoted. But beyond that, there's no real push for you to have to be promoted. If you're happy in the job, you can keep doing it. And as you get more senior, you end up doing a bit less of the technical work and a bit more managerial work. I think that's probably true almost everywhere. Some tech companies do have quite good individual contributor tracks where you can stay like really quite hands-on with coding or whatever it is you're doing. But in general, like promotion means taking on more managerial responsibilities. That's cool if you want to do it. I'm quite happy doing it, but not everyone is.
Okay, thank you. Zuzana?
Yeah, very specific example from our company. So we have also these two main tracks, like when you can go towards more of a specialist role and more towards the people or the managerial role. And actually, if you are more senior, I have colleagues that are still coding full time and they are in a company for 25 years. If you don't want to have a people or managerial role, you don't have to. So it's really up on the individual preferences.
Okay. Rasmus?
Just wanted to point out that it's not everywhere that you can talk about jobs being higher or lower than someone else's. There are more dimensions to this. I don't want to be a leader, for example. I don't want to manage anyone, but I don't mind being the go-to guy. And there's plenty of room to expand in that direction. You don't always have to think up or down. So I'm actually quite content right where I am.
Thank you. And Stefania?
Yeah, I wanted to share also the experience of the bigger company. I think you can really do what you want, but also since you have so many internal opportunities, you can decide also where you want to go. There are different business units, so this helps you making also a career in the private sector, if you want, if the company is big. This is what I saw as difference from the startup, because of course it was more limited, more small, 30 people. We started in 3, so 30 people was already 10 times. But yes, and there is not this pressure. Yeah, I think it's a good environment. So I think more relaxed from the academia. I think once you make the transition, you face so many challenges for the transition when you are there. So you can, I mean, you have still the ability to do a lot of things, but you're more relaxed. I feel this. So yes. So
Okay. I
no
think
pressure at all.
this is quite reassuring to hear. We have another question that is related to being overqualified. Is this actually a big problem when you're looking for a job, and how can you target a more senior positions when applying? Yes, Andrea.
Yeah, so as we just said, I think there are two types of more senior positions. There are more a manager role, and in that case, your soft skill and your ability to manage people will be important to demonstrate that you are a good fit. Or as we said, there is also the expert path role, right? In which case you become very expert in a specific topic that the company needs. Clearly, the second one really requires a better fit, a detailed fit of your job profile, of your experience with what the company searches. That may be tricky in some cases if you are external to the field where the company works. However, I think that usually the job opening clearly describes the level of seniority that is required, and if you are interested in a more senior level, I would say that what a candidate, let's say with a strong background in research, like at CERN, would shine is this ability to coordinate a large group of people, international experience, this type of soft skill. Personally, if I can say, it was actually one of the reasons why I was hired where I am now. They were struggling to find someone that was willing to coordinate a distributed team in 3 continents. And that, when I could say I have this experience from CERN directly, this was valuable much more than all other my technical skills for that particular job.
Thank you. Zuzanna?
Yeah, I have a little bit different topic about this. Like, yes, you can be overqualified for a position, but I mentioned that with the tips that you should know your worth. A very specific example from my job search. It was a first job, so of course I was not really sure what I'm looking for, and I tried many different things. And at one of the interviews, when it was actually the first interview, we also discussed the price range, and it was significantly below what I knew from the union where I would like to see myself. And then they told me, oh, but we don't need you to have a PhD for this position. And I was, well, but I kind of have. So like, maybe just like get a graduate if you want someone not like overqualified, because it's then like, yes, you might be overqualified for a position, but you don't need to get the job. And yeah, that's pretty much what I want to say.
Thank you very much, Zuzanna. We have 2 related questions on the interview process. How can you succeed in interviews if you are not great at self-promotion, or if you're not great yet, feel comfortable embellishing answers? And also why it seems that companies care more about how good someone is during the interview process rather than how well will he actually do the job. Would any of you want to comment on these questions?
Alessandra, I had actually a comment on the previous question.
Okay,
Basically,
go for it.
there are a lot of job opportunities in which it's written really preferred PhD. So also this is a good indication you have something more. So it depends where you apply, but a lot of positions, they really prefer PhDs. So
all right, thank you.
take it on.
Okay, and Carlos?
Yeah, I think sometimes because I have been in interviewing, so I've been on the other side of this, and it's actually kind of hard when you do get 100 applications. So I understand the question is like, oh, they are hiring you because of the interview and not for how good you would be at your job, but also how will the company know how good you will be at your job if it's not by the interview? So if you are not telling the company that you will succeed in that job, then why would the company hire you if they don't know that? So it's really something that you have to put the work and learn on how to do it. And I particularly think that it's actually kind of funny. I feel like being at CERN, because you meet so many smart people, then you kind of double guess yourself sometimes, and you're like, I don't know, maybe I don't know how to code, or I know statistics, but I'm not, a PhD in math and statistics and all that. And the reality is, we at CERN is a bubble, right? Where a lot of people with a very, very mindset and very smart people are there, but you need to also see what is out there and see like, oh no, your experience in statistics is actually quite profound. Same with coding, same with the stuff like this. So it takes time. It's not easy. And that's what I was saying of kind of go to interviews and try to explore yourself, because you need to get better at telling that you are good at the job that you're applying. If not, how they're going to hire you, or why they should pick you over the other 99 candidates.
James, would you like to comment as well?
Yeah, just to say, like similarly from this other side of the table, like we spend a lot of time thinking about how to make sure our interviews are giving us the information that we can judge who we think the right people, the best people who we're interviewing are. And it's not easy, but it's a thing we do worry about. We constantly change our interview process to try and make it better. If anyone here thinks they've got good ideas about what a better interview would look like, we'd certainly be interested in hearing them, and I'm sure other people would be too.
Yeah, I guess it is a difficult process from both parties, actually, the person who is trying to get a job and also the recruiter. So that's very interesting to hear your insights. Another question was about how did you cope with the transition process of having to learn a new discipline whilst you were probably from the start expected to perform competently and be actually productive? Is anyone willing to comment on the question? Yes, we have Zuzana and Andrea. Zuzana, can you start?
Yes, I was very lucky on the team I landed in, and my manager understood that I had no financial background. So while I started coding and contributing to the team, they kept repeating to me that it's a learning journey, and it was completely fine to be lost in meetings where people were using language I didn't understand. And yeah, eventually you get there. So you also, but this was mentioned multiple times, that we are perfectionists and we're like kind of expecting to understand everything immediately, and you just at some point you need to accept that well, there are people that studies finance for 5 years, so of course overnight you will not catch up with them, but eventually you will. So just take it that it's a journey.
Okay, Andrea?
I think that if you get to the level of interview, talking with the hiring manager, I think it's a very valid question to ask how the company provides onboarding for a new employee. So what are the opportunities for an employee to learn skills where you don't have? Many companies have also a training program. So this is another good question to ask to the company. What type of training program do you offer? So if there is a certain budget allocated for upskilling or learning new skills. And I think these are very valid questions to ask, and that will also give you an idea if this is the company that values upskilling personnel and what type of progression you can do in a company. So I would not be afraid of asking.
Okay, James, would you like to add?
Yeah, so a couple of things. So first is like a little anecdote, which is actually the first thing I was asked to do when I joined this company was to build a like cloud-based environment that people could use for analyzing data. And I thought I was building a prototype, and I only found out about a month into it that it was going to be used for real the next week. So I think like sometimes not knowing like why what you're doing is hard or like important is actually kind of helpful. But no, I think the more important point is that people don't expect you to be perfect at everything when you start. People expect you to learn things on the job, and they expect you to take time to get up to speed, and they expect you to ask questions and to not know things that everyone else knows. And, I think everyone's been in that. You had that feeling of, going into a room where everyone knows something. Like at CERN, you go to a new analysis and everyone's talking about like some particular analysis variable you've never heard of, and you feel like, oh, am I stupid to put my hand up and ask what is MT or whatever it is? Like it's not. People know that everyone's encountering things for the first time at some point. And especially when you're new to a company, it's like really easy to ask stupid questions and no one will judge you for it.
Thank you. And last comment from Stefania.
I wanted just a comment that basically in the boarding period in Takeda, I use really a couple of tools that allows dashboarding. If you know Python, basically you use these tools, and I was not familiar with. So basically, I spent I think the first weeks only on the documentation page, and then I contributed to this minimal viable product of this of this tool, basically. So they and I think they continue to repeat to myself, no, don't worry, we know we're hired and you don't have the skill, so this is no problem. Even if you wanted to contribute even more, because we are used to give our help right away, but yeah, they give you the time to learn the tools that they need. I think they think of the high profit after your training. Yeah.
Thank you. So again, very reassuring answers. To wrap up this session, I would just like to address one question regarding networking, as it seems that with present work in academia, there is almost no overlap with people outside of it. And so sometimes it feels like two parallel universes with almost no connection. And I think maybe Rachel, our head of alumni relations, is the best suited to comment on this one.
So what I would say here is that one of the 4 reasons why the alumni program was set up was to support those people who are currently at CERN in their transition when they choose to leave academia. You have in the alumni network now, we have over 10,700 members. Over 75% of them are people who've worked at CERN and who've left. So these are the people that have this experience. They have an experience of having been at CERN, having left CERN, as you've seen today with our amazing panelists. So what I'm going to do is, Alexandra, if you want, I'll leave you to wrap up. Then I'm going to give you a short demo of our alumni platform so you can see where you can find this information, how you can network, how you can connect with our enormous pool of CERN alumni.
All right, amazing. Thank you, Rachel. Okay, so for the wrap up, this very interesting and informative event, I think some of the key takeaways are that in academia, you are solving complex problems in technology, but such challenges also exist in the industry, and therefore you already have the required knowledge and skills, and it can be as interesting as it was in academia or maybe more. It seems that problem-solving mindset is a top skill, and employers appreciate flexibility and adaptability. They often look for generalists, and you can always learn new tool rather quickly. What is more important is your knowledge, capability of analysis, and structured problem solving. What also came out is that communication skills are very important, so a range of soft skills matters. And it's quite interesting that it is important to adapt the communication to the audience that can be sometimes less technical outside of academia. And networking is really important. So our advice of our panelists is to be proactive, to connect to former colleagues who move to industry, and to make sure to apply to jobs that really interest you. And so that you show to the employers how you can help them, why they should hire you. So job-tailored CVs bring better results. Storytelling, honest storytelling is valued. So with that, I would like to really say big thank you to our alumni speakers for their insights, for their energy and enthusiasm, and for all the reassuring messages. So thank you for that. You are an evidence how careers can be successfully continued after CERN. Thank you for taking the time to share this experience with us, with our audience today. And I give it back to Rachel. Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you so much, Alexandra. And also you've done a sterling job. You've been brilliant facilitating this event. So a huge thank you to you. And before we move to the breakout rooms, we are very lucky because we have Jibril, who is from Carlos's company, I believe open source, if I'm not mistaken. So
Open Systems.
Thank you. Sorry, I do apologize. So as promised, I just want to quickly spend a few minutes to show everybody out there how you can leverage the CERN alumni platform. So number one, we were able to find these amazing alumni thanks to the profiles that they have prepared on alumni.cern. So when you navigate to alumni.cern, when you go to community, you find the community map and you can see all our alumni spread across the globe. Now, if you're interested in networking, you might want to do virtual networking. So for example, I'm going to do a live demo and I'm going to hope that it works properly. You can go into the filters and you can put, for example, data science. Just here we are. Right. And then also I want to choose those people who are actually CERN alumni. So CERN alumni are people who've actually left the organization. And here we have 253 people who have indicated in their skills that they are in, they have skills in data science. And who's popped up? We see Susanna already. So this means I'm going to click on you, Susanna. I can send Susanna a message and I can ask her for some tips on how I might move into data science. So this is one way. I'm not going to open that up because I have all my messages which are in there. That's one way that you can leverage the alumni network. Also, I wanted to point out to you that we have a jobs board here. So if you click on career and jobs, you can find positions which have been posted either by alumni. So for example, here you can see Fabien, he's just posted this position in Munich. So you can contact him directly to find out what his job's about. And you can see there's plenty of positions that have been posted by him. We also have companies like ESO, EMBL that post their job positions here. So don't hesitate to reach out to them and find out more information. Then if you are interested in perhaps finding yourself a mentor, you also have the mentoring module here. So if you click on mentoring, you find out more information about the roles and responsibilities of being a mentor, some guidelines, and then actually you can click here and you can find a whole list of people who have put themselves forwards to be mentors. So all you need to do is look through and check their skills and see if they match with what you're expecting, and then reach out to them and see if you can find a match with them. So here we've got some of the guidelines, as I mentioned. And then finally, we weren't able to go through all of the questions. There were plenty of questions that we had. So what we've done is we've set up a forum in Your Virtual R1. And what we're going to do is we're going to ask all of the speakers that if we post the questions which were not answered, if we post them here, if they'd be so kind as to contribute and give their replies. I guess also I can say that you can contact the speakers on alumni.cern. They've all got very nice profiles, so you can get in touch with them. You can also meet them now in person. But before we do that, I'd like to just quickly invite Catherine Lenné to come on the camera, because she, along with Irini Cucuvini Platia, is organizing the Women in Data Science conference, which is coming up. It's not reserved just for women. Everybody can join. So please, Catherine, please go for it.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. So as Rachel said, it's called Women in Data Science, and that's because we showcase the work of women, but it's a technical conference and it's really open to anyone. It's taking place in 2 weeks' time, so on the 1st of April, and we have a really varied program, so you can get lots of different ideas about areas, different industries that you could work in data science in. We're going to have a workshop from a CERN alumnus on how to transition from academia to industry. There's going to be a CV clinic, so you can get feedback on your CV, and lots of opportunities for networking. So it's only 80 francs for the whole day, which gets you lunch and an apéro and coffee breaks as well. And when you buy your ticket, you can also upload a link to your CV, and then we pass this on to the sponsors as well. So make sure you have that ready. So I think that was probably my 30 seconds.
Great, thank you. And I see Irini has put the link into the link. It's also advertised on the alumni.cern platform. So I hope there you've seen different ways that you can network. We also, for those people who are coming to the end of their contract, the Office for Alumni Relations also invites you for a drink on a Friday evening where you can network with alumni that we invite back So you can see there's life after CERN and there's a very nice life after CERN. So I think I should wrap it up there. One more time, I want to say a big thank you to Alexandra, and then also all of our panelists who gave up their time today. And also thank you to my team for organizing this great event. And thank you to everybody else who's joined us. And now I think Simona is going to open up the breakout rooms. So please feel free to go into the breakout rooms. Each of the breakout room will be named after one of our panelists. As I said, Carlos will also be joined by his talent acquisition person. Thank you very much, Jibril. We're very much looking forward to having you in with us. And I wish all of you a very fruitful networking session. Thank you once again and have a nice weekend.